So in today's video, I'm sharing how codependency impacts your financial boundaries in relationships. So you're going to learn what a financial boundary is and how you can start to set them in your relationships. But first, if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So codependency is a pattern of overgiving that often impacts our financial decisions as well. We might tend to rescue somebody if they need financial help, but this often creates a lot of financial problems for us, which is why I want to address it in this video. The other challenge is that when you're codependent, you struggle to set boundaries. You feel like you have to help the other person and step in and rescue them, even though they're adults. And that's why learning how to set boundaries is going to be really, really important in your codependency recovery. So what is a financial boundary? It's basically your right to decide where you spend your money. It's also your right to be paid for your time and talent. So a common financial boundary is when you get requests to work for free. And this is always around our livelihood. So for instance, maybe you're a contractor or an artist. Your family and friends always ask you to do projects for them. But it's your livelihood. This is something you get paid for. If you end up saying yes, you end up feeling resentful, and it can even cause financial hardship for you because you're giving your time and talent away for free. So the key is to ask yourself, are you giving away your time and talent for free? And if you are and you don't want to be doing that, how can you give less? How can you say, you know, I would love to help you, but this is my livelihood and it really just doesn't work for me anymore. Is there another way I can support you? That's one way to handle that. Another financial boundary that's really common is when we feel compelled to spend money on other adults. Because you may feel obligated. This was me. All through my growing up years into my 20s, I felt like it was my job to pay for everyone. In fact, it made me really uncomfortable whenever the check would come, when I would go out to eat with people, because I really felt like it was my job. And the problem with that was that it always made me feel resentful, like I never had a choice. But that obligation is part of that codependent pattern of overgiving that we really need to address. So I had to get to the point to say, you know what, Michelle, I don't want to do this anymore. And when I had the willingness and desire to change that boundary, I did. So if you're tired of spending money on other people, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you. You can absolutely choose not to do that anymore. Another common financial boundary that most codependent people struggle with is lending people money that you don't really have, or lending people money that you know are not going to pay you back. Doing this may put yourself at risk financially, because if you're lending money that you don't have, that's going to make a lot more financial trouble for you. But again, when we have big hearts and we're codependent, we think we need to rescue that other person and take care of them before we take care of ourselves. But that's not the goal in recovery. The goal in recovery is to take care of yourself first so that you can give out of choice, not obligation. Years ago, I had to make a firm rule that I was not going to lend money out because it never came back. And I had to learn the hard way. That's where you may have to make that same choice. Or ask yourself, if you lend this money, how likely is it that you're going to be paid back? Because if the answer is, well, they've never paid me back, not a cent, and they keep asking for more, then there's your answer. Because you deserve to spend your money the way you see fit. It doesn't mean you don't care if you don't financially rescue them. In fact, it can often improve our relationships when we stop financially rescuing other people, because that's going to tell you whether or not the relationship is going to survive. Because if they gaslight you and blame you and get abusive around you not lending them money, then there's your answer of how good a friend or family member they actually are for you. Another common financial boundary is when people expect you to pay for them. This one's a little different. I had a girlfriend years ago, and she told me, she said, you know, the person who has the most money is the person who should pay. and I had more money than her, and she always made a point to say that. And it was super uncomfortable because I thought, what a weird rule that is. Like, she was financially independent, she had a job, but for some reason I attracted that mentality. And maybe you find that in your life too, where you're attracting people who expect you to take care of them, expect you to pay for their bills, for when they eat out with you, for the movies, whatever it is. I find that a major red flag in relationships. And it can also be a sign of a one-sided relationship that's beginning. Because when we're doing for someone else what they should be doing for themselves, that's creating an unhealthy one-sided relationship that I don't want for you. So the solution is to write down a list. Who are the people in your life that expect you to pay? And what's your plan? What do you want to do? The next time the check comes, for me, I had to sit and I had to wait until that other person picked it up. And it was super uncomfortable, but it showed me that that other person would eventually do that. And it created more of a healthy balance of give and take in the relationship. And as a result, I was a lot less resentful. If you relate to this, say me too in the comments. So, how do you fix it and start setting financial boundaries in your relationships? The first thing I want you to do is identify all the people and situations where you feel compelled to help or rescue someone else financially, or pay more than your fair share. And I want you to do some journaling about that, because there's probably some codependent patterns in there, or that's the only way that other people will love you if you overgive, that really need to be identified, because awareness is a huge step in your growth. Next, I want you to look at each of those situations and people. Ask yourself, what do you want to give? Even if you're not ready to carry it out yet, I want you to write it down. I don't want to give anything. I want to stop paying when we eat out. I want to say no when somebody asks me for free help. Whatever that is, I want you to write it down, because that is your first step in actually carrying it out. Now, the third part of this is, what are you willing to do differently today? Because that is going to be where you get to start to practice. Who are the people that are safest with, that you could start to pull back and give less, even if it's just a little bit, because it's progress, not perfection. One other quick tip I want to leave you with is what other forms of support you could offer. Because maybe you feel like you don't have another choice or another way to show support. And there's a lot of other things you can do to show support. You can listen, you can validate, you can help them brainstorm another solution. You don't always have to give financially. And when you have other forms of giving, that can really help reduce the guilt. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to go watch my video on how to know your own boundaries, because that's your next step. Thanks so much.